Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I am coming to you with some underrated fantasy books. Also, I'm pretty sure I said these were fantasy books. There is actually one that's sci-fi and not fantasy. So anyway, these are underrated SFF books, pretty much. So anyway, first I'm going to start with Green Rider by Kristen Britton. I am starting with this one because actually the 7th book in the series is coming out in September, and I'm so excited. This is a series that has a cult following, basically. Like, there are definitely fans of this series out there who are very dedicated, but unfortunately I really don't feel like enough people really know about this series. Like, a lot of people really haven't read it. Like, I barely know anyone personally who has read it, but it's actually a fairly popular series-ish. But anyway, it's basically about a girl who becomes a Green Rider, which is a messenger for the king who delivers like the most important messages. And so sometimes it can be a very dangerous job, and they can do other stuff too, other like royal errands and stuff. Like, it's very complicated, but basically the thing that makes this book so good is how kind of well-rounded it is. Not just in like character traits, for instance, and character personalities and world building and stuff like that, but also, I mean, even just in the first book, we really get to know the main character and the people in her life and everything, even if we don't see them on the page. So for instance, we know that she has a very close friendship with her best friend Estrel, but unfortunately Estrel doesn't even show up until the 3rd book or something like that. And but we still get such a sense of who she is and what their dynamic is like without Estrel even showing up yet, basically, like, even in the first book. And we basically know who like her family members are, and like the kind of stuff that she's done, and the kind of like school she's been to and home she has and all this other stuff. Like, we know all this stuff about her even if we don't see it. And basically, yeah, so the first book is basically about her finding a Green Rider who is dying, and he asks her to replace him because the message has to be delivered. So she takes his horse and all his stuff and is like sad that he died. She couldn't help him, but she's like, what do I do? So she basically has to go and deliver this message herself and runs into all kinds of problems along the way. And from there, basically each book is very different. There are different things happening that to her and to the people around her that are really insane. And the whole series has progressed so much just from the beginning. There's not even an end in sight. I don't think the author even really knows how many more books there will be, but I hope there are a lot more because I love the crap out of this series, and I'm really excited for the next book to come out in September. Next, we have Crown Duel by Sherwood Smith. This is unfortunately one of the only Sherwood Smith books I've read. I have several of her books on my TBR, but anyway, I read this when I was in high school. It's basically just about a girl who is a countess, and she ends up, in the first half of the book, she's at war, essentially, and she has to fight and all this crazy stuff. And then the second half of the book, because this actually used to be 2 separate books, but they got combined into one, I guess. And so the second half of the book is she's at court, and she has a whole different fight, basically. Like, she's used to being a warrior at that point, but she has to, like, go and talk to court ladies, and she's like, what am I doing here? And this is a book that, you know, it came out a long time ago, actually, and I should really reread it, but I feel like I remember it so much that at this point I don't really want to reread it because I remember it too well, all that stuff. But anyway, it's definitely really good. Next on the list is the Noble Dead Saga by Barb and J.C. Hendy. This is a book that basically combines like vampires with a medievally Lord of the Ringsy type of setting. So it's basically like there are elves and stuff, and there are vampires, and so it's really, really awesome. So it basically starts off with a woman who doesn't know that she's half vampire, but it's actually pretty obvious. And her friend who is half elf, and they kind of have been for several years like scamming villagers into thinking that she's a vampire hunter, and basically that she's getting rid of whatever like thing is there, all that stuff, but she's actually not doing anything. It's totally a setup, pretty much. And then they run into some actual vampires and they actually have to fight vampires for real. And then she discovers that she's half vampire and it's like all this whole mess. But yeah, it's really, really good. It definitely, the first few books go really in depth into like the main character's backstories, and it's like ridiculous how they got where they are. And there are a lot of other characters in this who are really good. Like overall, the story and the characters are so good, and more people really need to be reading this series. The next two books that I have on this list, the last two books even, are ones that these authors are not particularly underhyped by any means. They're pretty popular, but these books of theirs I don't feel get quite as much attention as their other books do. So first we have the Lillis Brood trilogy by Octavia E. Butler. This is a trilogy about essentially what happens when the Earth has actually been destroyed and aliens are basically trying to rehabilitate humans to what the Earth is like now, essentially. And it's really weird. And there's a lot of like weird alien sex and stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff in this book that like is so all over the place. And it's the kind of book where like at first you feel the main character's terror of the aliens because she doesn't understand what's going on. And it actually starts off being like such a scary, creepy book that, because I was like, what is even going on? That I actually like couldn't sleep that night and whatnot. But as the main character starts understanding what's going on and becoming less afraid of the aliens, it actually gets less scary. Like it's really weird. Like we almost start understanding it with the main character, like along with her. It's like so weird and it's a trip. But anyway, I really, really love this book, this series, and you should totally read it. And last but certainly not least, we have Dreamer's Pool by Juliette Marillier. I feel like a lot of people talk about her other books like Daughter of the Forest and Shadowfell and all of that, but I feel like not a lot of people talk about this series. I've only read this book in the series so far, but it's a trilogy, I do believe. It's kind of an episodic trilogy because the main characters kind of have a different conflict to deal with in each book or whatever, but this one essentially is about the two main characters having to figure out what is going on when a prince who is supposed to marry this princess finally meets the princess, and she's totally not the same person that he had been exchanging letters with, and she's like a total snob and like and not into any of the same things that like she had claimed to be in the letter. Like she's totally not the same person, and he's convinced that like something happened. Like he doesn't know why why his fiance is essentially a completely different person. It's really weird. So the main characters, who are a healer lady and a dude who like helped her break out of jail, basically have to figure out what's going on, and it's crazy. But anyway, yeah, so this is definitely a book that like I could not put it down at several points, and while a lot of Juliette Marillier's other books are very kind of quiet and they kind of lull you into the story, this one's like, holy shit, right from the get-go, and it's awesome. Anyway, those are some underhyped SFF books for y'all. I hope that you found at least one that maybe you want to check out now. I don't know. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!